Welcome, everyone. Bienvenidos. Reforma is delighted to collaborate with the Asian Pacific American Librarians Associations to present Welcome to More Latino Than We Realize, Filipino Librarians' Contributions to Librarianship. This is an event to celebrate Filipino librarians and the beautiful links uniting us. Filipinos and Latinos share various cultural characteristics such as last names, religion, and even language, as many words in Spanish are integrated into their language. The Reforma International Relations Committee is concerned about all Latinos and our diverse heritage. In the past, webinars by the Reforma International Relations Committee have featured Chinese-Latino communities and library services for them, and we have featured librarians from Ukraine and Iran. Today, we are delighted to present this event highlighting our Filipino colleagues. Now, I would like to welcome Reforma President David Lopez.
Hello, buenas tardes y buenos días. On behalf of Reforma, I would like to welcome you all to this important conversation that underlines the value in collaborating with professionals across diverse lived experiences. We are honored to work with APALA, an organization whose mission we share in and colleagues we consider part of our own familia. Latino librarians and Filipino librarians, while both integral to the global library community, bring unique cultural perspectives, professional practices, and community engagement strategies that reflect their distinct cultural backgrounds. Regardless of identity, the commitment to librarianship is apparent by the strong emphasis on community outreach, educational support, advocating for inclusive representation, preserving the cultural narratives of their varied backgrounds, and the integration of technology to bridge information gaps in diverse and geographically dispersed populations. Understanding and celebrating the differences between Latino and Filipino librarians is crucial for fostering stronger connections and collaborations within the library profession. By recognizing the unique contributions of each group, libraries can promote cross-cultural understanding, share best practices, and develop inclusive programs that cater to the needs of their diverse user bases. This appreciation and exchange of diverse cultural and professional insights can lead to more innovative and responsive library services, ultimately enriching the communities they serve. Reforma is proud to join APALA on this and future efforts to move our associations forward. I hope you'll enjoy this insightful program. Maraming salamat. Muchas gracias.
Excellent. Thank you, David. And now I am very happy to share with you some information from our speakers. They are Jana Ray Cabrera, APALA President, April Manabat, Teaching and Learning Support Librarian at Nazarbayev University in Astana, Kazakhstan, Joseph Marmol Yap, PhD student, Doctoral School of Literary Studies at the Edward Loran University in Budapest, Hungary. Dr. Reza Alenzuela, Head Librarian of Oriental Institute of the Academy of Sciences in the Czech Republic, and Ria Rowena U. Apolinaro, Dean, School of Library and Information Studies, University of the Philippines in Diliman. Welcome, everyone, and we are so happy that Jena will be our moderator today. Welcome.
Thank you, Loida. Thank you, David. I'm so excited to be here with everyone today. We have a great lineup of Filipino librarians from across the world. Some of them are coming to you from 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and I admire their dedication and passion for the work that we all do. But I'll introduce myself again. My name is Jana Ray Cabrera. I am the Asian Pacific American Librarians Association President, as well as a branch manager and children's librarian at the San Francisco Public Library. I'd like to invite our speakers to introduce themselves, and we can start with Rhea.
Hello, everybody. Good morning from the Philippines. My name is Rhea Rowena Apolinario. And okay, my background is changing. I'm sorry. But I'm the Dean of the UP School of Library and Information Studies. Like what I mentioned a while ago, I used to work a librarian. I used to work as a librarian actually, but I think teaching is more for me. So I started teaching in 2009, and there's no turning back. I enjoy what I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhea. April?
All right. So, hi everyone. Good morning. Magandang umaga sa mga kababayan sa Pilipinas. So my name is April. I'm April Manabat. I'm currently one of the senior expert librarian, and I'm also a teaching and learning support librarian here at Nazarbayev University in Kazakhstan. I've been in the profession for quite some time. I'm currently teaching as well online at Polytechnic University of the Philippines and at West Visayas State University, both teaching library or LIS subjects and also doing some study. So thank you.
Thank you, April. Raisa?
Okay, thank you, Jenna. First of all, I'd like to thank Loida and everyone for having me join in this event today. So I'm Raisa Valenzuela. I'm currently working in Czech Republic as head librarian. As to my work, I'm mostly managing the library and a bit of doing research support here in the Oriental Institute. Some interesting fact in a nutshell, I was hired to standardize the library practices, organize the collection, which was accumulated for more than 100 years of existence of the Institute, where the topic is about Asia, Middle East, and North Africa. And one last thing is that's fascinating about my work here is that the library is more of an archives and a research, and I have a vault of papyri and lots of ancient texts and unique manuscripts.
Thank you, Raisa. And finally, we have Joseph.
Thank you, Jaina. Hola. Kumusta kayong lahat? My name is Joseph Yap. I'm a full-time PhD student in Hungary. I am also teaching as well, part-time, just like April, as well as I am doing a part-time job as a library assistant in Central European University, also in Hungary.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for the introductions. So I'm going to get started with a few questions, and then hopefully we'll have about 15 minutes or so for Q&A from the attendees. But my first question is, how does it feel to be a Filipino librarian where you are now in your current country? And anyone can hop in, jump in if you'd like.
Can I go first?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So yeah, to answer the question, it's always interesting and challenging at the same time. Lucky for me, I have two colleagues who are also here, who are the first one who opened the doors for me here in Kazakhstan, and I'm very grateful for Reisa and Joseph for doing that. So it's interesting because I have a different lineup of colleagues as well, but at the same time challenging because you also need to make sure that at some point you're not just how do you call it, not just a one of the minorities, so because I'm in Kazakhstan and most of my colleagues are locals, so technically I'm one of the minorities, but at the same time I have this thought that I'm also an expat. So it's interesting and challenging at the same time. But as I always mention, Reisa and Joseph open the doors for me, and that is making my life easier at the same time. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, April. Any of the others would like to answer that question? Oh, go ahead, Raisa. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that April is already there. Someone who's going to continue the works, although both of them are already interestingly making a great impact in Kazakhstan, I'm pretty sure. So on my end, how does it feel to be a Filipino librarian in a country in Czech Republic? So first of all, I'm the only Filipina in this century-old institute, and being in a supervisory position, first, I'd like to see it as in the positive light. That kind of, for me, I'm really glad it's this is kind of a picture of acceptance, of openness. I wanted to believe that the selection process did not consider nationality as one of the issues, and they chose me as based on my experience that matched whatever they needed. So for me, first, I feel honored, but at the same time, it's also a pressure on my end to prove that since I'm creating the precedence as the first Filipina, I need to do right. I need to do best in what I'm doing, and I need to at least leave a humble legacy or do right, so that people would say that Filipinos, when they work, they work well. So I think that's all I can share for now.
Thank you, Raisa.
I was about to say the same. Just like Reza and April, I am pressured as well. I am the first Filipino librarian to study in Loran University as a PhD student. I was elected as the first Philippine ambassador for PhD and DLA Students Association in Hungary, and one of the first Filipinos to work in Central European University. So I think that's the same pressure that Teresa is feeling, but I am also grateful because I was allowed to work with them. I feel valued and motivated, as well as humbled, because I was chosen to work along with Hungarians and many other nationalities.
Okay, I'll go last because I'm in the Philippines. I'm well, I think in the Philippines stereotypes still exist. You know, the usual, librarians are like this and like that. But I'm proud. I'm proud to be a librarian. I'm proud to be a teacher. And I think slowly, it's just my perception. I think librarians in the Philippines are slowly getting recognized and valued in their work. Because I think we are more out there doing things for the community, not only limited to our work in our own institutions, but we are really putting ourselves there in the community, helping the community. So I think we are slowly getting recognized and valued in our work.
Thank you, Rhea. Yeah, I've noticed that as well here in the United States. When I first started as a librarian just 7 years ago, there weren't many of us in my public library system, but we've definitely grown in number to the point where I actually have like a Filipino affinity group that I started here on our staff, so that we get together, we break bread, we go to dinner often, usually Filipino food, but I mean, who doesn't love Filipino food? All right. So my next question is, what are some of the unique contributions you feel we bring to librarianship? Like, what is it about our culture? What is it about what people think of us? What do we bring to librarianship as a profession?
Let's start. Okay. So the fact that for me, I see it from a perspective as a librarian and then as a Filipina. The fact that for me, being a librarian in the Philippines, we established our profession through a legislation. I can say that we are academically prepared to be a librarian. Whenever we leave, when we left the country, we already know the basics of what librarianship is, and we have a community that supports us, or a profession that supports us. I can say that that's the best thing that we have, being prepared as a librarian, as well as considering the fact that our librarianship is patterned after the librarianship in the US. That's something important, that we already know what we wanted to do. A lot of things are standardized, but I also wanted to highlight the fact that as a Filipino, we have ingrained values as professionals. Filipino librarians being known for being adaptable and resourceful. We can effectively manage limited resources, often finding creative solutions to challenges such as budget constraints and lack of infrastructure. This ingenuity, I would say, ensures that libraries remain vibrant and functional, even in less ideal circumstances, which we bring in. Also, the personal characteristics we have being partly influenced by a mixed culture. We are happy people. We have this values, which are, I could even mention probably too, related to being a Filipina. We have this term called delicadeza. Delicadeza as associated with being paying importance to as an integral part of the society or of the community or of the profession where we come from. That's one values that I think is interesting, because we try to do best because we take pride of our profession or our origin. So I think the characteristics, the personal characteristics, as well as professional preparedness are in general the things, unique contributions that we can share, we can bring into librarianship.
Okay, maybe I can add to what Risa mentioned a while ago. Now, Risa mentioned about we are academically prepared, and I think that's true because the Philippines, our profession is regulated. So after taking a bachelor's degree or a master's in library and information science, if we want to practice being a librarian, we need to take a licensure examination, okay, that we have to pass. And I think that's what it means also to be academically prepared. So when we get that license and we are considered to be a professional librarian, I think that means a lot. That means a lot. I think it elevates somehow our status in the industry, and the employer, I think, would gives value to what we do. Okay, so coupled with that, because we are also required or expected to have what we call personal and professional competencies as a librarian. And we put those things in mind and in heart that, in the practice of our profession, we need to imbibe those values and we need to have those competencies. And I think Filipinos in general, like what Risa mentioned, are known to be happy people, resilient and hardworking individuals, coupled with our ability to communicate well. So I think not only for Filipino librarians, but I think Filipinos in general, you know, they're very easy to communicate with. So more so, Filipino librarians, they can converse with anyone, and I think it's not very hard for us to talk to people. Thanks.
Thank you, Rhea. I think that's true. Even here with in the US, we tend to be a lot more gregarious than some other people, more outgoing, more community oriented. And I feel like this profession really lends itself to the core values of being Filipino. Would anybody else like to add before I move on to the next question? Okay, so this question is not on the list. I am curious about the fact that librarianship is not a traditional career choice for Filipinos and a lot of people of color specifically. Did you face any opposition, or was it all very supportive? I know here in the United States, a lot of my family members are nurses or they go into medicine. or some other service-oriented profession. So what was your experience in becoming a librarian?
There was
Okay,
no
oh,
other choice.
yeah, go ahead, Joseph.
Sorry, this will be quick. There is no other choice. If you ask all mostly Filipino librarians, the same answer would say we don't even know that there is librarianship or librarianship exists, right? So it's just like we bumped into this profession, we applied for the program, we finished the program, and now we're librarians. So it's just now we need to love the career that we have. Like we have to be passionate about it. We are still here doing the same profession that we do. So I think it all involves all of those things that you've learned throughout your career. So I think we are going to retire being a librarian.
And may I also add to that, Jaina, because Joseph, Reza, and April are all graduates of the university where I teach in. So, coming from the perspective of an educator, they're right. It's not, high school or senior high school students would not easily put Bachelor of Library and Information Science as a choice, like an academic program to pursue in college or in higher education institution. But slowly, based on the records that we have, uh, like for example, myself, I'm one of the chosen few who really chose Bachelor of Library and Information Science as a course in college. But slowly, I think, there are a lot of senior high school students who are taking up BLIS, at least in our university, who came from science high schools. So these are the students who are taking STEM track or who pursued STEM track in their senior high school. So we are probably because, BLIS in the university where I teach in is included in the science and technology cluster. And also, BLIS as a Department of Science and Technology priority course. So if you are a graduate of a science high school in your senior high school, then this could be a choice as an academic program because it's recognized by the Department of Science and Technology, and you can still, enjoy all the perks of being a scholar. So I think slowly, it's getting again the recognition it deserves to have. And I think our graduates are our marketing tools. If they do well, then people would want to be like them. And I'm happy that, all of the panelists that we have here, April, Joseph, and Reza, they're all paving the way. They're all paving the way to promote our profession and to take BLIS or MLIS in the future.
Maybe I just wanted to add, no, I think for us the challenge would be getting the Filipino youngsters, for instance, to as mentioned by Dr. Imam Rhea, for instance, that it's very challenging to encourage the students to take library science. But actually, in the what do you call it? Like in here in the country, let's say in Kazakhstan, they know the librarians as, even if you're Filipino, they know the librarians as a professional. But to get students to take library science in the Philippines, that is actually a challenge because of the stereotypes. And I think most of the LIS schools, they are really working hard to market BLIS for senior high school. So in general, it's always a challenge. I think as now an educator as well, by myself, it's very challenging to take some LIS students or probably senior high school students to be an LIS professional. But as Joseph mentioned, this is our profession. We learn to love it, and we will be retiring as Filipino librarians.
Okay, I'll probably quickly add in the end. So for me, how did I perceive when I took librarianship? Just the same as Joseph. I would rather say, I always share it to the group that for me, being in a library position, it seems like the position chose me, not me, because I even before I studied my master's in library science, I was actually studying law. So, and everyone was expecting me to do other tasks until I kind of got to love the work, the interesting part of the work, because it's actually very diverse and it's evolving, given that we're dealing with information, which is the same thing that I'm sharing with everyone. When you say librarian, it's actually a very complex and an important field in the information age. We deal not only with new materials, but we deal with data science, we deal with archival studies. So for me, librarianship is still kind of stereotyped as a typical traditional profession, but having our presence and having this dialogue, it helps us make people understand what librarianship is.
Right. As they say, representation matters, and us being who we are and what we do makes a difference. I think it gives younger people, the idea that they can be a librarian just by us being who we are and what we do. Let's see. How do you navigate and bridge cultural differences while working as a librarian in a country outside of the Philippines?
Okay, I'll try to start. How do you navigate? As I mentioned, it's a bit challenging. I think learning the language is really a skill. And well, unfortunately, I only learned a few of Kazakh and Russian, but thanks to Google Translate that I was able to communicate if I need to buy something. But generally here in the university, it's also an English-speaking university. So language is sometimes not an issue as well because we can talk in English. But at the same time, it's also challenging if you wanted to ask something. So what I do usually is I try to relate to the culture. So if they talk about food, I also try to, share something about the food, about the culture. I try to be more curious. I try to ask questions. If there are some events from the locals that they wanted me to go. So I try my best to, to find time to join the community. At the same time with the students, I also engage with them because I'm doing teaching and learning. So once in a while, I introduce myself, not once in a while, but always, in the classes, I introduce myself in Russian or in Kazakh so that they can get the attention of the students. But at the same time, I sort of, interject some jokes. So it will be more, I can establish the happy, happy side of me being a Filipino and as the librarian in the university.
Thank you, April. Anyone else want to add to that?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on then. Can you speak to any challenges you faced as a Filipino librarian working abroad and how you overcame them?
Okay, probably I could start. I've been in different countries. So if I try to find the common challenges that I face as a librarian, as I totally agree with April, language barrier is one of those. Second, the preconceived notion of a Filipina and a librarian as two different things are also some of the challenges that I face as a librarian. Language barrier, of course, especially in Czech Republic, I find Slavic language very difficult to pronounce or to work on. So that's one thing that I'm trying to really understand or to be able to develop at least or a bit in terms of communication to be able to be proficient at some point just to interact with the group. Also, when it comes to preconceived notion or notion of a Filipina, I'm trying to avoid the word stereotype, but it seems like it's leading towards that. Whether I was in South Korea in my previous when I started leaving the country, or in Kazakhstan, there's just a bit Vanuatu. There's always this notion that Filipina came to a particular country because they are married to a white guy or an international or a foreigner. So that kind of thing, I mean, I don't mind. It's amazing that we connect with other people, but I wish that people would also see us Filipinos as professionals. There are tendencies that we have left the country as professionals and we are doing decent jobs. So to address those two challenges, one on language, of course, I try to study any language in the language or in a country where I work. I'm still working on that with Czech language. When it comes to stereotyping, I engage with more people. Of course, this is not happening inside my institution right now because we are more international hires, and given the field of studies they're working on for researchers, it's not a problem. But when I go out, it's something else. So I engage more with people. I put it probably simply, I just walk and behave confidently. If I need to say something, I act as a professional. If I have information that I can share with everyone, I engage. If they don't want to, I try to understand the culture. If they wanted space, if they wanted to be on their own, I that's what I do. And I try to be as independent and knowledgeable as possible about the place and the country where I am.
I think to add to this is also it may be difficult for a first time worker to gain the trust and respect of the people whom you're working with. It takes some time for them to believe in your proposals, maybe to convince them that you can really do the job. So in the beginning, you really have to prove yourself, even you don't have to prove it because you know you can do that, but still, because they're at the back of their minds, probably because you're new and you're just starting with them. So getting a project or a task to be given, I think it takes some time to get the trust and the confidence that they will give you. I mean, as a project that you can lead later on.
All right, thank you, Joseph and Raisa. My next question is, how do you actively promote Filipino culture and heritage through your work as a librarian? Or do you have the opportunity to do so?
Yeah, here as a student recently, there is a gathering called the Cultural Connection Day. So even though they did not ask us, because we learned that there is an opportunity for this, we eagerly asked the organizers if we can have a Philippine booth. So at this stage, and then learning that it was happening already, we found out that it was only the Philippines who has a booth. And so it's like a highlight about the Philippines during that day. So it's the first, they call it the Cultural Connection Day. We asked one of our best singers, a student, a Filipino one, who can sing, and everybody just congratulated her after the song, the performance. And so even though we managed to build it in such a short period of time, and we are happy we did it, because otherwise then other nationalities would think that later on, if you are in a school, it's like always a competition among nations. So I think next year there are more student organizations willing to be part of the event. So we tend to really promote the culture of the Philippines.
Okay, if I may add, we almost probably have the same activities, but may I start with the idea that one thing great about librarianship is we deal with information in general. So wherever we go, we can integrate what is Filipino heritage, what is Filipino culture, what is Filipino language. Although it's kind of, for me, it's a challenge because aside from being a Filipino in general, I actually came from the central part of the Philippines, which has also a diverse and a unique identity. I'm an Ilongga. So how do I connect this? Well, I start with introducing what Filipino is and what being coming from my region as part of the diversity of Filipinos is. First, with the resources, the very first time I came to, for example, here in Czech Republic, I looked into our collection, what are about the Philippines. I'm just lucky that in my current institution, part of the studies is of the Philippines, although there is no Philippine scholar in Philippine studies. But one thing is we have information about the Philippines, not as huge as in other countries. The second way is making information about the Philippines globally accessible. I think most of us are also participating in this. We participate in projects building digital libraries to offer assistance or to find resources about the Philippines. I also include in my research studies related to Filipino culture and language, which I think April, Joseph, and Dean Apolinario also have. But one thing interesting about our studies here is that since we are part of Asia, I can really highlight the Philippines as one of the representatives. And for me, personally, I try not to miss an opportunity like this we have right now, where we have a discussion and I get an opportunity to share about the Philippines globally.
Yeah, maybe just to add, here in the university, it's a bit challenging because, as I mentioned, we're also considered a minority at some point. So, but the good thing is we're kind of represented as one of the staff, as faculty, and as a student. So we have a PhD student also here in the university. Although we didn't have much chance to represent, like, as mentioned by Joseph, like a booth or whatever. Because it's really like a task, it's an extra responsibility at some point because we have different things to do. But there are small Filipino communities in the schools. Let's say some of them, they have students, children actually studying in one of the international schools, for instance, and they highlight Filipino culture. So some of them, they invite us to be part. Let's say I will be wearing my Filipiniana or helping them to cook whatever, like lumpia or whatever, those kinds of things. One of the things that I did last time during the conference, I decided to wear my Filipiniana, a modern Filipiniana that has been sitting for more than 3 years. And it was very cold at that time, but I have no choice. I just wanted to flaunt my, how do you call it, like terno. So it's a bit challenging to wear, but I wear it all throughout the conference, at least for that day. And they're asking, what is that? What are you wearing? So I really try to, describe that this is a terno, this is a modern Filipiniana, and, intricate designs, all of those things. But if there are chances, we try our best to promote, because as I mentioned, it's like minority in the school or in the university at the moment. I also wanted to highlight that we don't have embassy here. So that's why we don't have that kind of, extravagant or more organized way of promoting the culture. But once in a while, I think we had some visitors from the Philippine Embassy in Russia. So one of the professors decided to invite them, and they had a discussion, or they were able to meet the president of the university that time. So at least at some point they know that, hey, there are Filipinos in the university.
Yeah, and also, Jane, as LIS educators here in the Philippines, we try to engage and to collaborate with our colleagues abroad globally. So we try our best to be active in different associations like the iSchools, Consortium, uh, ALIEP, and also ASIST. So if there's an opportunity for us to help or organize a conference, a workshop, or an activity, or even collaborate with a paper, we really try our best to participate.
Thank you. Joseph brought up food in the chat.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. I think one best thing to do is to invite locals into your house and cook for them, or bring something like a Filipino food in the workplace. I think they will love that and introduce those food to them.
Are there any particular foods any of you have served or shared with your colleagues?
Mine
say
is
curious.
Valenciana.
What was that?
Valenciana. It's a one-pot dish, so it is more of Spanish origin. But yeah. Aside from adobo, of course.
Yeah, for me, adobo as well. But because this is a generally Muslim country, only chicken adobo would be, preferable. But if every time I go to the Philippines and going back here, I have the polvoron with me and giving it out to the deans or whoever sometimes because they know that we can speak a little Spanish, our especially at the Zamboanga, no, Chabacano. So they know that one of the deans said that he felt like every time he see me, he can speak in Spanish or something like that because I'm giving her pulboron or we talk about lechon, ostia, those kinds of things. But it's fun to just give out, food from the Philippines.
Yes, that's right. Like when we go to a conference, we would give our colleagues dried mangoes, polvoron. So, these are a hit among our international colleagues.
Yeah. And I think that's a good value of a Filipino. I don't know how to call it, if we're like generous enough to really provide and bring those stuff. I mean, probably most Asians are like that, but I don't know with other nationalities, if they give gifts to other tokens to other, like when you attend conferences or coming from your home country.
All right, thank you. I think that made a lot of us kind of hungry. All right, this is probably going to be my final question before we go to questions from our audience. But let's see, what role do you see Filipino librarians playing in the future of global librarianship, particularly in the digital age?
Probably I'll start because there are two things just as I have in mind. One is in the emerging technologies in the age of artificial intelligence. One area that I see where we play an important role as librarian is making information linkable and accessible to everyone. So for me, there are two initiatives that we are kind of heading towards, or currently I'm working on. One is advancing open science and open access. So the World Wide Web and all the rising movements to connect the globe is an opportunity to make researchers and resources available everywhere, promoting the creation of digital libraries that support open access also helps make this information or data, if I wanted to be specific, those that are not usually available, like from the global south or from Asia, or specifically from the Philippines. I'm fully aware, like being Filipina, there's so many resources that we haven't really shared much to the world yet. So that with technology, with more openness nowadays, hopefully this will be one of the roles of librarians, given that we are creating the metadata, we're developing the platforms or enhancing the platforms for retrieval. And also librarians being actively involved in deepening the understanding of researchers and the academic community about the importance of openness and sharing to make information accessible and discoverable is an area. And lastly, I just wanted to highlight this seemed to be just a typical task when we do digitization, but I believe that digital preservation and having all our resources preserved and digitized in the World Wide Web, being available online, is a way to share about the rich and diverse indigenous knowledge and historical resources from any country at that point. And for me, as a librarian, in the future, with the help of technology, we will be we possess this very important commodity, which is information, and we can work towards ensuring equitable access to information on resources and support initiative that bridge cultures.
Thank you, Raisa. Would anybody else like to add to that question? Again, it's what role do you see as playing in the future of global librarianship, and especially in this digital age?
Maybe I can add, right? Okay, so I think Filipino librarians or librarians in general, we have this willingness to learn, you know. I remember back in, when was that? When AI is really in the hype, and they said that librarians will probably be out, you know, those kinds of scare. But to be honest, librarians are very trainable. We are very much willing to learn. And in my work, we slowly integrate AI literacy. We at first we're very hesitant because of, you know, AI part of the research and all of those things as a research tool. But now we try to integrate. We try to introduce some tools. We also learn first, but at the same time we don't forget to mention that there's an ethical use of AI. So we always make the available information or tools accessible to the students or whoever. We join the community of practice. We present there. We share our thoughts about AI, all these digital tools. But at the same time, we always go back to the ground. Like, we always wanted to know that there's always an ethical use of these tools. So in general, I think librarians can really, you know, join this hype of digital library, digital things. But as I mentioned, it's more of being more professional and being more trainable, you know, in these kinds of things. So we just very much willing to learn and to train the students. At the same time, we are also learning the tools, learning to be part of the information or the changing information horizons.
I think from the perspective of LS educators in the Philippines and also from our university, we are continuously adapting to the demands of the information and library profession. So we do this by our ongoing and continuous curricular improvements. So we are constantly revising and improving our courses to reflect the changing times. In fact, currently, UP already has 4 academic programs. One in the undergraduate program, we call it the Bachelor of Library and Information Science, and we have 3 graduate programs already. So we have Master in Library and Information Science, Master of Science in Library and Information Science, and the recent one is the Master in Archives and Records Management, which is the first of its kind in Southeast Asia. Along those lines, of course, we also make sure that when we teach our courses, we introduce innovative pedagogical methods. We also make sure that our faculty members are continuously learning as well through formal, non-formal, and informal methods. So we make sure that we are knowledgeable and adept in data science, in AI, and all these new things. So we also learn from our counterparts abroad, and we value that so much. And we bring these learnings to our teaching, research, and extension activity. So we do all this to make sure that we produce students or graduates who are not only locally competitive, but but globally competitive as well.
Thank you, Rhea. So we have about 10 minutes left. This is the time where we can open up questions from the audience. There is one in the Q&A right now, but if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or go ahead and put them in the Q&A and we'll address them here. But the first question so far is, what is the career outlook for librarians in the Philippines?
All right. I would like to believe that we have high demand. you know, there's a joke, actually a running joke, that there is low supply of librarians in the Philippines, but there is a high demand for librarians in the Philippines. I say this because since this is connected with our profession being regulated. So in all institutions, in public libraries, academic libraries, school libraries, and special libraries, they're required to have a librarian. Especially if there's a library, it should be the one managing the library should be a licensed librarian or professional librarian. So I would like to believe that there is a big demand for librarians in the Philippines, but there is low supply, given the fact that there are only a few students taking up BLIS, and also few practicing professionals who would like to take MLIS.
That's so interesting. I feel like it's the reverse here in the United States. There are so many library students and not enough jobs sometimes. So it's a little opposite. Like I know, and especially for certain systems and larger cities, it's highly competitive to work at a library. Yeah. Let's see. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any.
Dana, I have,
Yeah.
maybe you can answer, but do you think Phil-Americans would consider going to Philippines to work?
I was just thinking about that. It's like maybe I could do that. Because I've only been to the Philippines a handful of times in my life so far, and I would love to immerse myself more in the culture of my grandparents and my parents. I feel like a lot of Filipinos, Filipino Americans, there's a bit of a disconnect, especially if you were born in the United States. So I didn't realize that there was a high demand for librarians in the Philippines. I will spread that news to all of the Filipino American librarians I know. We're actually meeting. So the American Libraries Association annual conference is next week in San Diego. And we are gathering as many of the Filipino librarians as we can in one place at the Lumpia factory in San Diego. So that's very exciting. And I will chat everyone up.
Yeah, Gina, but we have a different salary here. I mean, compared, of course, to what you're getting there in the US, it's relatively low, but generally okay. Generally okay in the Philippines. Okay, so there's a question here I saw, that how are the salaries compared with other professions? Well,
Good
it
segue.
also varies, yeah. Yeah, it also varies. Like in the Philippines, it's different when you work in a private organization than working in a government agency. So they vary.
Is one more secure in terms of employment than the other, like government versus private?
Yes, of course, when you work in a government agency, there's security of tenure, and I think that's what employees would look at, right? So, like for example, during the pandemic, government employees didn't lose their jobs because they are secured in their work, unlike other private organizations that really struggled during the pandemic. So I think there's more stability, there's more security when you work in a government office. But like they say, when you work in a private organization, salaries tend to be a little higher or way higher than what you get in government offices.
Yeah,
Probably I
that's
wanted
what
to
just-
add a perspective of how are the salaries compared with other profession. If we look at the global librarianship from our perspective, I think the salaries vary depending on the country because of the cost of living and all other factors. And we need to consider as well that like in other countries, for me, I'm not in the classification as specifically as librarian. I came to Czech Republic as part of the plantilla of scholars, or we call it research fellow. So they classify based on your qualifications and the job that you're doing. So I think that's also similar to other countries, given that there are countries in Europe which does not have kind of a standardized salary rate specifically for a particular profession. But I'm just speaking about my institution, which is part of the 54 networks of academic research institutions in Czech Republic.
Thank you. We have another question in the Q&A. So this might be our last question as it's 4:56 and I'd like to respect everyone's time. I know some of you would like to get to sleep. But the final question is, how do you think librarianship can contribute to the development and empowerment of Filipinas?
Yeah, okay, Filipinas, the Philippines as a country, I think, right? Okay, we capitalize on what we're good at. So for example, we're good at, providing information literacy, making sure that we educate our community, our students, and we start with that. The Philippines has a lot of problems right now, and even in the past, probably during the election, what happened to us, misinformation, disinformation are there, and we make sure that we do something about it. So we capitalize on what we're good at, and we do activities to promote information literacy among our community. So on top of that, of course, we also promote the culture of reading to our students, to our community, and maybe Joseph, Reza, and even our graduates, the librarians who are abroad, are doing their job, even if they're not in the Philippines. They're helping the Philippines in so many ways. So,
All right. Thank you all. It is 4:57. I want to thank all of our wonderful panelists for the conversation we had today. Loida, do you have anything to add before we all hop off?
No, thank you so much, very much to everybody that wake up very early or went to bed very late to be with us today. And the recording will be available soon.